Hey, this is Brian with the Balanced Dog, and today I want to kind of go over the Habbit Loop and how that can be applied. Hi, buddy. How that can be applied to dogs as well as people. So, setting up. Well, we look at a scenario maybe with a person. Let's say the person gets stressed, and then they go eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's, and then they feel better for a while, right? And so that basically has become that person's habit loop on how they cope with stress. So what we look at is there's a cue, there's a routine, and then there's a reward. So the trick is you can't keep the cue and the reward the same, but we're going to change the routine. So in that scenario with that person, let's say they get stressed. So whatever that stressor is, that's the cue. The routine is Ben & Jerry's, and then they feel good for a short period of time, right? So if we look at that and say, okay, here's the cue, the stressor, and then the routine is they go out and they do a 15-minute walk, or they go do a 15-minute meditation, right? And then the reward is the same. There's a pleasure that's being served with the ice cream, but again, it's a short-lived one. But if they go for a 15-minute walk outside and into nature, or they do a 10 or 15-minute meditation, there's a reward that's decreasing the stress, but in a better way, in a way that in the long run will be more beneficial. So when I look at that with dogs, like right here on cue, this is Tioga, and he's one of my new dogs, and he was, he's a very low defense dog, high flight. He's got really high pack drive, and his prey drive, we're just starting to see it come out more and more, that he's getting more confident, is about medium, right? So when he came to me, he wasn't around people. He was in a hoarding situation. So, he got a lot of good socializing with dogs, and that's what what really appealed to me about him is his high pack drive. So I knew I was going to be able to work on these behaviors with people and noises and stuff like that. So for instance, with him, what he was doing was when he was out here in the yard, and if I moved too quick, it startled him, so he would run out of the yard up to the stairs and get by the screen door. And when I would let him in, he would just go into flight and go into his crate. So I wanted to change all of that and make it a better situation for him. So when you look at, if we look at, okay, there's his habit loop. He gets startled. So the sound or the movement was the cue for him to go into flight, and then the reward was to be up on the deck or to go into flight into his crate, right, for safety. So I've been working on changing that habit loop to the cue's the same. So if I move too quick, he's getting much better at it. If I move too quick or there's a loud sound, that creates the routine of flight. And then him moving away from that, getting away from that situation, is the reward for him, which at that time is safety. So I can get away from it, then I feel safe. So I wanted to rebuild that loop. It can be phrased in other ways too, creating a new neural pathway or reframing something for the dog. So they're all very similar. So what I worked on was building a good recall on him first, so that when he went into flight, the trigger or the cue was the same, whether it was me moving too quick or if I raised my voice to say hi to the neighbor, that would startle him as well, and he would go into flight. So every time he did that, I would recall him, and I'd recall him when he got to the top of the deck, and then I started to shorten it and catch him sooner just before he went up the stairs, and I recalled him back to me. Excuse me. So that was the beginning of the new habit loop. So we still had the cue, the sound or whatever it was that triggered the flight, but the routine changed. Instead of allowing the flight, I recalled him back to me, and then the reward was still the same. He felt safe next to me. That was the goal, is to teach him that when you go in the flight, the reward is come back to me or to the handler. And so that's worked really well. And then in addition to that, oh, look at, I got to pay him big bucks. I did the place work with him as well, so that if he got startled or nervous about something, he would start to go over there and hang out. So another quick scenario would be something like a dog reactive dog. And so what their pathway or their habit loop looks like is they hear a dog, see a dog, and then that's their cue. And then their routine is they start to pull on the leash, or they start to bark, or they start to lunge. And then the reward is that dog goes away, right? Because most likely that dog is passing by on a walk or passing by the house or whatever the case might be. So for the dog, he's created his own reward. Is in his mind, he sent the dog away. So I changed that one by first building a good recall again, and then bringing a dog or two out here in my yard, and then I take the training dog out into the field and I start letting them push out towards my dogs. And so when I see those cues of him going into that behavior, I want to change the routine, which is I recall him back, right? Because most dogs that are going out and being reactive, they're not confident dogs. So the more I can teach them come back to here, to safety, that's the reward, right? So it's sees a dog, that's the cue. The routine is now, the new routine is I recall him away from the dog. And the reward is the dog went away. But the difference is, instead of him thinking he made the dog go away, I actually, by recalling him, that was even a bigger reward, because not only did the distraction or the stimulus no longer was a concern to him and in his mind went away, but the feeling or the psyche of the dog is much healthier, because now he's back next to me or the handler where he feels safe. You know, so that's just a basic sort of synopsis of looking at changing behaviors by almost looking at the dog's, what's this dog's habit, you know, and then looking at the habit loop, and then how can we change the routine but keeping the cue and the reward the same. So I hope that helps, and Mr. Tioga back there is chilling, so it seems to be working well. Thanks for watching.